Today I leave for my spring photography trip, this time visiting the Great Smoky Mountains National Park in North Carolina and Tennessee. I've been to the Smokies quite a few times over the last several years, most recently in the fall of 2017 and 18. I've also been there in the spring a few times, but it's been a little while. Even though the Smokies is one of the most visited parks, I find it easy to get away from the crowds by practicing a few simple principles. First, avoid the peak times of visitation, which means going a little early or a little late in any given season. Crowds are always highest during those peak times, but for me, the most productive photography happens a little before peak in the spring and a little past peak in the fall, so that works to my advantage. Since I'm always looking for tree and forest images, I want to see the structure of the trees underneath the leaves, which is hard to do when the trees are fully leafed out during the peak times. So being a little early in the spring or just past peak in the fall is when the trees reveal themselves and gives me more raw material to work with, because the shapes and forms of the trees are beautifully revealed while still offering enough color to suggest the season. Second, and this one seems obvious, but I just try to avoid the busier parts of the park, which seems to be the Tennessee side, Cades Cove, and surrounding areas. It's a big place, so finding solitude isn't too difficult. This trip also marks my return to large format photography. I spent the first 20 years of my landscape journey using 4x5. Then I switched to medium format digital about 10 years ago. But recently I've been missing the look of film and how it renders natural subjects, and the control a view camera gives over a scene. So I will be exposing some film again on this trip, along with medium format digital, which I won't completely abandon, at least for now. The weather forecast is calling for wind and rain during my trip, and while you can usually count on rain and fog in the Smokies, I'd like to avoid the wind, especially with the view camera. But one thing I've learned over many years of landscape photography trips is to stay open, try not to have too many preconceived ideas, and be ready for whatever nature throws my way. Well, I finally made it to the Smokies today. It was kind of a long drive, a lot of road construction and traffic, but not too bad. So I got here in plenty of time. I've been scouting around a little bit, and things look a little early. The foliage really isn't quite out yet. There's not a ton of dogwood out. The redbud isn't quite at peak yet. So maybe the next day or so it'll be a little better. But it sure is beautiful here, and it's great to be here. And so I'm just going to spend some time scouting around and seeing if I can find some subjects. And mostly that'll just be driving around the roads and stopping at the little pull-offs and wandering a little bit to see what I can find. And hopefully I'll find something that makes me want to set up the camera and make some exposures. It is supposed to be pretty windy. I had wind advisories popping up on my nav system the entire drive up here, so hopefully I'll be able to find some quiet patches to be able to make some exposures. And it's also supposed to rain some. And rain I don't mind. I actually like photographing. If it's a light rain, that really makes the foliage look nice. It saturates the colors and really makes the forest glow. So a little rain is good. I've almost always had that when I've been here in the Smokies. So I'm looking forward to that a little bit. But the wind could stay away, so we'll see what happens with that. But anyway, now I'm just going to wander around some more and see if I can find some more subjects. Well, you can't get any more convenient than this, right next to the car. I found a really nice scene with these little delicate green leaves, just backlit with the sun. And the brightness range seemed pretty good for Provia. I did some Provia and some Ectar, and I just had to shield the lens there to keep the sun from flaring it. But it looked really good, and of course we'll wait and see once the film gets processed. And speaking of film, this is my first time shooting film in almost 10 years. Back to trying some large format again, and I'm really excited to be here in the Smokies with a large format camera. First day of the trip, it's the arrival day, it was a travel day, long day today, but it's nice to have some film exposed on a subject, and I can't wait to see what the next day or so will hold. So here's another backlit scene. Just driving down the road and just saw the beautiful canopy coming together with the leaves just glowing. And it's about 1/10 of a second at f/18. This is my 150 to 300 lens at about 150. I do have quite a bit of depth of field here. I have some really near leaves as well, but the canopy is just overarching and coming together, and really, really beautiful. This happens a lot in the Smokies when you're photographing on the road, and I think it's really nice when this happens. So a beautiful backlight, always something to look out for. Often people say, oh, don't photograph backlight, but boy, in the right situation, things just glow, and surprisingly, the contrast isn't too bad. As often people think the rule of thumb with backlight is, oh, it's super contrasty, but not in the right situation. And this is one of those where it falls into a nice range and it really looks nice. Well, I hope you can hear me over the river. I found a nice composition here with a little dogwood tree leaning over a rock and the white water and some rocks leading in. And I really like it. So it's 1 second at 22 and just having to wait for the wind to stop blowing, which it does every so often. And we'll try one more. Stop down just a little because I'm worried about the white water.
So that was my last setup for the day. I made several exposures of this scene, and hopefully I got a few without any wind motion. After a long day of driving, I was happy to have found 3 different subjects not long after arriving in the Smokies. But for now, as the light was fading, it was time to grab dinner, load some film, and get some rest. One of these days, I'll learn how to sign off on camera like everyone else. But until then, I hope you enjoyed this video. Please give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you want to see the upcoming days of this trip and stay connected with my future adventures. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.